Howdy howdy, I'm Strawberry Jen, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I want to say before we really get started that I happen to have ADHD and I do believe that I might be a little bit touched by the tism. That is all to say that I can't do this thing called niching down to save my life. So you might see all kinds of things on this channel, but today I wanted to talk a little bit about Celeste. Not the base game, but the modding scene in particular. The thing that made me interested in wanting to talk about Celeste mods in particular is actually a singular map called Shrouded Thoughts. And it's the first map that I want to talk about at least a little bit because I actually started making my own mods, and as I was going through and finding various little entities that I could use, I started using what are called boom boxes. That's the name of the entity if you open up LON, L-O with two dots over it, and N. And as I was using them and using Factory Helper, I was like, this is so fascinating. And as I looked into a little bit more, I discovered that I believe, I could be wrong on this, that the creator of the Factory Helper mod also made this level Shrouded Thoughts. The person that made this, now I actually have this in front of me as I'm recording. I'm experimenting with different styles of recording right now, but the person who made Shrouded Thoughts is Caden Fox. And they actually do have a YouTube channel, and I actually want to read you the description about their own mod that they themselves have. Old Factory was my biggest project to date. It took me about 1.5 months to make, usually with 8+ hours every day, because I had absolutely nothing to do work and sometimes was so into making it that I had stayed up late when I was in the zone. It contains an incredible amount of custom entities and assets. It has a bunch of cutscenes and continues from after the events of Farewell. While the difficulty is not quite as high as Farewell, there's plenty of challenge here still, as well as a lot of brain work, as you will be facing some puzzles in this huge abandoned factory. That's the first paragraph from their own description of the mod. And I would say it's really cool, and it has a ton of atmosphere because as that paragraph that I just read off verbatim said, it's in an abandoned factory. And it's a really cool mod because the atmosphere comes from that abandoned factory vibe, and it has this horror aesthetic. I'll be putting my own playthrough up as I'm talking about all of this. Shrouded Thoughts, the modded Celeste map level, is honestly, it's a hidden gem. I'm very glad I found it. Since I started talking about an individual level as the first kind of foray into speaking about modded Celeste, I wanted to continue on and touch just briefly on a particular type of level that you might find in modded Celeste, and that is a tutorial level. So there is an interesting little map called Ultra School, and I wanted to bring it up because I'm trying to learn how to do this in the game Celeste right now, a trick known as an Ultra, and the author, or the mapper I guess you would say, Death Control, actually made a little map called Ultra School. I'll be sure to have a little bit of my playthrough of me attempting to get some Ultras in correctly in the video. Now, if you're already aware of the Celeste modding scene, you might already know of a very large modding project known as Strawberry Jam. I'm going to touch on it, but only briefly because it's not the main thing that I'd like to talk about. I do think that many other people have covered the Strawberry Jam collab as a part of the modded Celeste scene in great detail. So I really only wanted to briefly mention it and just talk about it just a little bit because there are some other sets of mods that I'm more interested in talking about, quite frankly. But one thing about Strawberry Jam that I do want to talk about is if you're playing some other mod or even the base game and you're thinking to yourself, I am really struggling with something, there is a spot in Strawberry Jam that has what are called gyms that teach you all kinds of various little tips and tricks and techniques for getting really good at this game. I suppose that I should also mention, too, some of my favorite levels that I have played in Strawberry Jam, as well as a few that I'm looking forward to. Now, I am barring myself from saying Paint. Everybody loves Paint. Everyone knows that Paint is the best level in the entire collab. That said, if I'm borrowing paint from my options, I would have to say that at least in the beginner lobby, that soap is one of my favorites. And I will readily admit, too, that I am going to point out that one of the two major puzzle levels, I believe it's called Under the Stars. There's Dropsel and there's Under the Stars. I actually really enjoyed playing Under the Stars. It was definitely a very different mindset, but it was a lot of fun. In the intermediate lobby, I do have to say that so far, I haven't beaten it yet, but I've played about half of Deep Blue, and that has become my favorite of the intermediate lobby levels, as well as Infiltration being the other favorite of mine in that lobby. So far, I'm enjoying intermediate lobby a lot. Okay, so all of the mods from this point forward, I will readily admit that I have less experience with, but there's still a few that I'd like to talk about, starting with the Spring 2020 collab. Now, I have played a little bit of the beginner lobby, and it is the predecessor to Strawberry Jam, and honestly, like, props to the entire modding community. If you play Strawberry Jam collab first and then go back to 2020 collab, it'll be a lot rougher around the edges as an experience as the whole, but when you compare the two, you can definitely see the community also as a whole just growing in experience and skill when it comes to like designing what is essentially a completely new game, to the point where a lot of people say that Strawberry Jam is the unofficial Celeste 2, and I am inclined to agree with them. Now, if you actually want a deep dive into the Spring 2020 collab, there's a wonderful video by Patricia Taxon that goes into extreme detail about the Spring 2020 collab that honestly makes me excited to go play it, along with how many other modded Celeste things that there are. Honestly, it feels like I'll never be able to get to them all. Henceforth, why the next couple of mods and collabs that I'm going to be talking about I have less experience with personally. It's just, there's so much to get through. Now, there are a few other things that I actually do want to, at the very least, mention, and it's going to be very interesting as I go to play some of these to show what they are like in my B-roll, because I'm recording this before I'm playing some of these. Now, I did, just to get a feel for this next, this one's not a collab, this one's a campaign called Into the Jungle. I did go through and honestly, in my case, I just turned on assist mode to just very quickly open up all the levels and used F6 to go and jump around between rooms when I felt like I needed to. But Into the Jungle is another modded Celeste. So far, my experience with Into the Jungle, there hasn't been anything in Into the Jungle that has really, truly grabbed me, at least in the very beginning with the first chapter going forth. That said, when I was jumping around a little bit more, I could tell that there was actually some more interesting things going on here, as when I jumped from the first chapter to the last chapter, the way the last chapter started, which I won't spoil, started in a very unique way that I thought was very, very interesting. So that might be one that I end up like playing all the way through and like get recorded / on stream or something like that. By the way, I also stream. So yes, Into the Jungle, Madeline becomes a jungle explorer. Now, the next mod, I really do genuinely hope that I will be able to play it at length. For some reason, at least on my playthrough, I have been running into a bug very early on with something that is a pretty crucial part of the game. But one of the other mods that I at least want to talk about and mention, now this one I may have to snag some footage from somebody else, but The Secret of Celeste Mountain is also a very interesting little mod because this one takes Celeste and functionally turns it into Metroid. Yes, it is a Celeste Metroidvania, which is super duper cool, and I really wish I wouldn't have found that bug so early, which is a game-breaking bug, so I am hoping that there is a way to get around it and avoid it. I hope so, because I want to play this one a lot. Now, I hear that The Secret of Celeste Mountain is tough as nails, but what in Celeste isn't, to be quite honest. And speaking of tough as nails, perfect segue, I completely Nailed it! Okay, that was 100% a dad joke. But I at least want to mention the existence of Monica's D-sides. This is one that I am like, okay, I am both looking forward to and dreading simultaneously when it comes to playing this one. This is Kaizo's Celeste, and I have been able to get through Prologue. In Monica's D-sides, Prologue is a level, and that's how far I am. Now, to be quite fair, I didn't think that Prologue in Monica's D-sides was the worst, but it primes you for what you're in for, because I have played the first, room of Forsaken City, and oh my god. Now, there are just a few more mods that I want to at least mention. Firstly, the crossover collab. Now, this one came out very, very recently, and I actually picked this one up as soon as I realized it was coming out, and I know a lot of people put a lot of work into it, but I feel a little bit silly because I didn't realize that in order to play some of the levels, at first, you just go into the computer to play the levels. Somehow I missed that. So far in my playthrough of the crossover collab, I've played 2 or 3 levels, I found it was another one that wasn't quite for me. But that's the great thing about mods is it's there might be stuff that's for you where you're like, I'm all about this, and there might also be stuff that it's somebody else is like, I'm all about this, and you yourself might be like, this isn't so much my jam. But that was another one that I definitely wanted to mention. Now, seeing as I'm making a video about modded Celeste, I know I mentioned it at the beginning, but I also do need to at least plug my own campaign. I'm not 100% done with it, but I have a campaign called Strawberry Jen's Brazilian Coffee Mod, which is 3 levels with 1 B-side. There's going to be a second one, and I'm planning on making a 4th level as a final boss for it. And it's been very interesting for me to go through it and learn the basics of LAN, the map editor, and just going through and seeing where a lot of these entities came from and trying to make a cool level out of it. It would mean a lot to me if you were to go play it, and I hope that you enjoy it. And it's funny talking about your own mod because you're like, oh, that's right. I came across this thing that I don't know how to fix, and that thing that's probably a little bit janky, but hopefully people enjoy it. That is what I am crossing my fingers for. And now, for something completely different. I've talked about it in other videos, but I wanted to try something completely new, and as this is the end of the video, I am going completely off the rails into something totally different, because I wanted something to help with my ADHD and being like, I have this and this and this and that I want to talk about. And the first thing that I want to share with you is I did some miniature videos recording myself narrating the first couple pages of a comic that I have been working on. I hope you enjoy it. Hun, if you're looking to get drunk, the bar's across the street. I wish I could right now. Do you still have that energy shot tea? You still working all the way up in that mansion? Yeah. This one's on the house, hun. Tonight you'll sleep like a baby, and come morning, it'll hit you like a truck. Thanks. Ring, 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 ring. Okay, here we go again. Hot damn, she wasn't kidding. Mountain 10,000 feet tall, not to scale, also not accurate. And thanks for watching my video. And be sure to like and comment and subscribe and do all of those things that all the YouTubers always all tell you to do. And I will see you in the next one. Adios, guys.